a red flag flying here.
I have some news.
Ooh.
We could have someone coming on who was at the Labour Party Irish Society meeting to tell us exactly what happened, if you would like.
Yes, let's start.
Oh, gossip, yes.
Well, here we come. This is a world exclusive. This is Andrew.
I love how, right, there's another conversation happening right now about how they thwarted a left-wing takeover. That's all we do in the left. We swan in and take over.
Hello, Andrew. Are you meant to be anonymous?
Yeah.
Just like
No.
with the light behind you.
Can you see me?
You're
Yeah.
very, very welcome. Sort of, I'll leave Paul to talk to you, and then sort of you can decide what the two of you are doing between you.
Yeah,
Paul?
Yeah, good. Well, you want me to talk?
No, I want you to
Andrew's
sort out
probably
what
better
you
doing
wanted
it because
to
he
say.
wasn't multitasking between doing a live broadcast and being in an AGM, which is really the weirdest thing I've ever done. But yeah, it was pretty good. Andrew, do you want to go? Do you want to explain a little bit about our organisation in the build up, and then what actually happened in the meeting, and a bit of the past as well?
Yeah. So look, the past is that, you know, for several years we've been involved in Labour Party Irish Society. You know, when I first went in AGM back in 2017, I was really, really keen to actually meet other Irish socialists and build links with Irish communities. And, you know, I was pretty excited about it until I got to that AGM, and it was just basically completely rigged. They had sent this MP out to just tell everyone it was cancelled, and then they basically pulled a load of spads out of the queue at Westminster and loaded them all up into the room. So, you know, it was we just knew from the outset that they clearly had no interest in helping the grassroots, and there was going to be no socialism. The executive is basically being composed of the worst kind of Blairites. You know, over the years, I've had people that have literally, one of them was Tony Blair's speechwriter at one point. You know, these are the sort of people that you're dealing with. So, you know, for years and years, really, there's been a kind of appetite for building up and changing things. So particularly over the last year, you know, we have been organising and getting lots of sort of left-wing people together. But basically, what they pulled a fast one by triggering this AGM, you know, without any warning, and it actually just cut a lot of people out from organising, you know, from actually even participating in the election. But to cut a long story short, yeah, you know, tonight we were heading in there, probably expecting that it would be rigged, and basically they just stuffed the meeting, you know, full of the worst of the worst, ultra Blairites, and basically, yeah, they just decided to vote down anything to do with socialism. They're refusing to recognise the rights of local groups. There's a completely top-down organisation of just kind of Westminster circle elites. They just refuse to acknowledge grassroots organisations. There's no recognition of Irish communities in the Northeast. There's no recognition of, you know, Liverpool and so on. It's very much just a Westminster circuit for advancing the cause of right-wing MPs. And basically what they do when there's no lockdown on, they just have a piss up which costs thousands and thousands of members money for the right-wing PLP to basically meet up and have a piss up in Westminster. And yeah, they blocked any kind of motions on Irish unity, and basically just blocked any motions on socialism tonight.
Thank you, Andrew. Now, Stuart, you waved your hand there. Was that because you wanted to say something?
Well, I've got lots of things to say, but I don't think they're particularly useful. But yeah, you know, solidarity. We know these kind of meetings go on, and they're used to stamp people down rather than, you know, actually do any real business.
The interesting thing for me were the figures that came out to vote for certain things, like when you've got the Welsh First Minister speaking against a motion, you know, he's turned up there, and you think, you know, I'm not really sure. Like, okay, he might have an interest in Irish issues, and that's absolutely fine. But there was Wes Streeton was on there, and you'd think he was probably busy doing things with schools. There were several people with the exact same name in the meeting because they'd all used the same Zoom link. You know, the voting system came in. Some of our people who we knew had been long-term members hadn't been reminded to renew their membership, and then they sprung this AGM out and said you needed to be a member by this date, and it just seemed a little bit. It seems a lot of effort to go to stay in control of a society, and when I proposed the motion which suggested local groups, and someone responded with, "Oh well, that's a very," one of the exec responded, "It's a very, very powerful speech, and I couldn't understand why you'd vote for it," and then proceeded to say, actually, because I'd said we hadn't really heard of them in the Northeast, you know, people aren't really getting involved here, and we never see them active, and they were like, "Well, we've been to Coventry, you know, Coventry, Watford." What was the other one? What was the other one they claimed that they'd been that was somewhere that wasn't London?
Ipswich.
Wow.
Ipswich, Dagenham, and I know hang on, they hadn't been to Dagenham. That's too far north. But yeah, so it was all a bit strange, and it was all very aggressive as well, as if we were saying you are terrible human beings, and it wasn't. It was a political meeting where we made our point, and they were like, "You're nasty, nasty people." So it was really interesting. The chair was friendly and nice, but it was more the person who came on as their attack person, I guess.
I must say at this point, Paul, that I have Irish heritage, you know. The family came over from Ireland. We have a sort of some way back in the dim, distant past. We are Irish, so I will join your Irish Labour Society, and I'm sure we can rustle up a whole load of other people with genuine Irish antecedents.
Then you can have your club meetings with Paul.
We love a good meeting.
Man, Andrew, can I just say, just talk to us for a little while longer. Tell us about one of the emotions, because I just love your accent.
Thanks.
It's so wonderful. Just talk to us a little while more.
But not in a creepy way.
Well, you actually want me to talk, or are you just having a laugh?
No,
just tell us some more. I think he wants to know a little bit more.
Lilting
He
accent.
doesn't have very good people skills, Andrew. I'm sorry.
That's absolutely. So the other thing is that there's a whole range of Irish accents. There isn't just an Irish accent. There's a whole approach, sort of from a very kind of Paisley kind of harsh, guttural kind of Irish accent. So you're very lyrical. Just leave me alone, everybody. Yeah, it's a very lyrical and gentle Irish accent, Andrew. So, I mean, you're going to tell me now that you're born and brought up in Birmingham, but where does your accent come from?
So I'm from Belfast. So I mean, I only moved over. Well, it was a while ago. It was in 2004. I moved over to the Midlands, but I currently live in London. But yeah. So I was born and raised in Belfast. And in terms of just campaigning, one of the main issues for me is very much, that I'm very much supportive of Irish unity, and I'm interested in a 32 county socialist republic, and that's very much at the heart of what I think we should be campaigning for. But they won't even let us have a referendum. These people, even within their own standards, the Good Friday Agreement, they weren't even proposing that we should have a border poll. They were basically saying that that's not something that we should basically be campaigning on, which is absolutely outrageous. So that was a massive issue for me, that they wouldn't even accept the idea of a referendum, and they just seem to be very terrified of democracy at all levels, whether that be democracy in terms of an Irish unity referendum or just democracy in terms of local groups, branches actually establishing a local presence. So that really is disappointing, I've got to say. But
we've just been talking about one of our questions tonight was, what are the implications of the Brexit deal for the Good Friday Agreement, and is it is the deal approved by Parliament good or bad for the future of the two parts of Ireland? I mean, sort of what as somebody who hails from Ireland and is sort of much more expert than any of us, I would have thought, on the issues. I mean, what do you think the impact of Brexit is going to be for the island of Ireland and the Good Friday Agreement?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, there was the kind of unionist idea that Brexit would copper fasten the union and actually would solidify the sort of 6 counties placed within the UK. But I would argue, and I voted Remain anyway, but I would argue that actually Brexit brings Ireland closer together, because there's actually, people are starting to come around to the idea that there's a certain component of the unionist community which actually does want to be in the EU. And I view things certainly through a socialist prism, or a socialist lens rather, but there are there's sort of unionist business interests that actually think that having a united Ireland in the EU, there is a kind of business component, there's a business argument. And even, the right-wing economist, wrote an article saying that basically that as an economic unit, that Ireland would function a lot better as a united Ireland. So there's different approaches to this. Obviously, mine's a socialist approach, but there are people that would make a kind of pro-business approach for why certain unionists might come around to the idea, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much indeed. Paul, you brought in somebody else. Alana Heaney?
Yeah. So basically, the leader of our left-wing group here has done some really amazing work on, just to tell us a little bit more about it in the combining of motions. Now, there was an interesting moment in the meeting where there were several motions that had some similarity, but they certainly weren't the same. And they said, well, if motion 2 falls, then 3, 4, I think it was 3, 4, and 5 fell as well, or maybe 3 and 4 fall as well, which was a really strange way of doing things, I think. So do you want to come in?
You need to unmute.
Hi everyone. Exhausted from that meeting and all the organizing. So I'm not prepared for the show. I'm just trying to find the motions actually that Paul's just mentioned. The motion that basically was motion 2, which was the Irish reunification and the British Labour Party. And the background to this is basically that it recognises that partition has impeded Irish economic development, and it calls on the Labour Party to cooperate in international solidarity with Irish Republican Socialist political parties and campaigns. And I mean, it resolves to basically, the only similarities it had, that at the end of the motion, it says about that we should organise all trade unions and other affiliated bodies to the Labour Party to work together. But I mean, motion 3 was basically about Irish unity, and it was basically the resolve was basically like the Good Friday Agreement recognised the right of the people of the island of Ireland to bring about a united Ireland, and the LPS, we were hoping. Oh, you've got it there. I was reading from another page. It is. So it was very, very different. And again, the next motion was very different as well. That this was about, like the motion 2 that I was proposing was about proposing that we campaign to implement the Good Friday Agreement in full. That exactly, just that wording, that it needs to be implemented 100%, and everything else will fall around it. That's exactly what we need to do, is campaign for that, and they wouldn't hear that motion, and they basically tried to pair it in with the other one, and I suggested possibly doing a composite of it, but they said it was too late. And then our motion fell, and then the next one, I'm trying to find it. I've gone past it. Again, that was to do with the right of Irish citizens abroad to vote in a referendum, and that was, you know, that was basically, that fell through because of the motion 2. My son's just arrived.
So yeah, so they had these motions that weren't really related to one another, and they just said, we're just going to put them all together. It's fine. We'll just put these things that are really quite unrelated to one another in one motion. And if this motion fails, and it was funny because our group had put together motions 3 and 4, and then the motion 2 was someone from external to our group, and it just seemed very odd. It seemed a very odd way to run things. And there were a lot of motions, and if they hadn't wanted to have heard them, then possibly you could have like argued, you know, it's a big agenda, or they could have said people spoke for less time or whatever, but it didn't feel right.
Can I just add one other thing? What I noticed about, well, we all noticed it was very, very top down. So when the speaker, Deirdre, introduced the motion, and then she introduced the proposer, she went then to a member of the EC, who then it was like he was guiding the audience as to, no, we oppose this. So, you know, he wasn't blatantly saying don't vote for this or do vote for this, but when the EC had a point of view on it, and it was like it wasn't the voice of ordinary members that was swaying the decision. It was the EC, and therefore it's not really representative of Irish voices. It was so frustrating, and then they have this double speak. It's just, I haven't had time to analyze it in my head, in fairness. So yeah, it's been difficult.
But well done anyway, on behalf of, I'm sure on behalf of all of us who were part of your organisation. Well done, because you did a cracking job.
And having another go next year, Alana?
Yes, that's one thing we are very proud of what we've achieved so far, and we are grassroots members who are actively recruiting people who will join the LPIS, and they have to be a Labour member, and attend all the meetings, join our organisation, our grassroots membership. You can contact Paul or Andrew or myself, and we basically need to recruit people from all over the UK. So go for it.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. And Andrew, thank you for that. Lovely. Anytime you want to come on and talk to us, you can. You just tell Paul you want to be on. You're welcome anytime. Alana,
thank you. Thank you very much.
From my team, because I think Andrew has the most lovely lilt to his accent. It's just a joy to listen to. I could listen to him all night.
You want to talk to my dad, John?
I'm going to be in so much trouble when you all go. Thank you so much for the two of you to come on to tell us all about that. And
cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
We'll have you
Solidarity.
God bless. Yeah. Right, everybody. Samantha, quickly take us through some points of people.
Top and bottom of it is there was something that people very much disagreed with us about. Can't remember what it was. I'll find it in a second. Tim and Susie were having a discussion in the comments about you going towards a cooperative model for housing for older people. Now, me and Tim have got a strong interest in cooperatives because we both work for the co-op, and amazingly, the co-op is a co-op, and there's lots of good things. There's lots of good things about it. So that type of business has lots of applications. Because it's just a more democratic type of running a business. Everybody who works for the business has a vote and stuff. And it's not, it's a non-profit structure. So whenever you've got a non-profit structure, you automatically do not have a dragon at the top by definition. So apparently Leeds has got a cooperative housing model. There's about 3 and a new one opening soon, and that's been to the benefit of older people. So that's one thing to think about. If you're not going 100% down the state ownership route, there are slightly less evil forms of capitalist ownership.
I'm sure that your employers would be unhappy to hear you describing them as slightly less evil. But there we go. So were Tim and Susan, were they agreeing with the cooperative model? Or?
Yeah, they were all for it. I think if they were on here, they'd be building a house right now, and they'd be 2 founding members of a cooperative.
One of the big things which is we must get going, which hasn't got going in the northeast, is cooperative models, because there's all kinds of community stroke cooperative down south things setting off in climate change, sort of having building a solar farm or a wind farm, sort of, and then using that to help the community. And so there's loads of things going on, and we just behind the game in the northeast. We need drivers. Who is Richie McLaughlin? Who's coming to the
I think this has been in our chat. Shall we see what Richie wants to say, or are we going to continue on?
Why not?
Let's see what Richie wants to say. Come on, Richie.
You're not watching this show, eh?
Oh.
Hi, Richie.
Hi, Richie. You've muted yourself.
Oh dear.
Oh. No, he's still muted.
Lost the button.
No, he's still muted. You need to.
You do know you're live on Facebook, don't you, Richie?
No, I can't hear what you're saying. So even if you're swearing at him, it's all lost. All lost.
There we go.
Hey, well
Hello.
done.
Hello.
So Richie, what have you come on to say?
Not really a lot, man. More than the disappointment I felt in being part of the LPIS for the first time ever. I was hugely disappointed in the attitude of the executive, the way it was all organised. We need to be cleverer. I think that's something we need to think going forward. Some of the motions were good. I think we were too rushed and on our slate trying to get it all together. So we didn't really amass a plan. There was an awful lot of misjudgment about where we were going on it. So that's it, more than else. I came on to listen rather than to participate.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one, we're just loving the accent. But thank you so much for coming on to this show. Really,
I don't have an accent. You have an accent.
Really messing with anybody here.
We've all got an accent.
Where does that accent come from, Richie?
From Dublin, the north side of Dublin.
Absolutely fantastic, thank you. And sort of, are you in presumably you're in living in the UK now?
Yeah, no, I live in Harrow East. Pamela was the person who inspired me to get out and join the Labour Party. I've always been involved in politics, interested in it, partially involved in it, but I was more, because of young kids, more involved in running football teams, and I was on the committee of the local football club in my local area. So hopefully I'm going to stand as a councillor this time round, if selected.
Brilliant. So we need people who are rooted in the community. And with
Harrow East is like the CLP, the exec is mostly left, unlike Harrow West where Pam is. But she stood in Harrow East. And in 2017, she came very close, with no help from central office, none whatsoever. They gave her no money to that, and she cut it down to 1,700 votes, which was unbelievable, from about 5,500. But this time round, we didn't stand a chance. You know, we have to be honest, we didn't stand a chance. So
unfortunately, losing is part of organising, isn't it? It's all part. It's all. So it's the thing that it's the oh, what's the thing, Paul? What's the thing that the guy said? Toughen up. He never really said toughen
Oh,
up.
Tony
but
Benn.
There
Tony
we go.
Benn. He says there's no
Thanks,
final
guys.
victory, there's
There
no
we
final
go.
defeat, so toughen up.
Well,
Bloody
I'm a Leeds
toughen up.
United supporter, so I'm used to that way of being.
Sunderland
Yeah.
for me,
was
so
at
it's a
Wembley in
disaster.
73 when I saw
Well, you gave me
Leeds
one
go
of my
down to
saddest days
City.
when I was a kid. Let's put it that way.
That's right. I think that you can't believe in democracy and moan when you lose. That's just part of the show. I think you're right, absolutely, to get yourself organised and go back and have another shot.
Yeah, we can't. Like, there's too many people say, you know, like within the Labour Party, leave. But you can't. If we do that, we're just fragmenting all over the place, and we never stand a chance of getting back.
I'll tell
No
you
one
something
thought we
else
would
as
get
well.
close with Labour.
The other thing that strikes me strongly about it is these people who say, "Oh, we didn't get elected last time, so let's just change what we believe in and let's go with a different message and hope that gets us elected." And that's not the point at all, is it? You have your beliefs and what you believe in, and the key is to try and persuade the electorate that those are the good things that they ought to believe in, and not to listen to those people who think that they're evil things that need rejecting. So
Yeah.
And actually, what we have found is if you don't give the people the opportunity to vote for things like socialism, a lot of people become very disengaged because they don't have anyone to want to vote for, and that's why before 6 years ago, I would have said I'm not interested in politics at all because none of the political parties spoke to me. And I think it's really important to give people different alternatives to vote for, and both sides creeping ever more to the centre does not give our people a valid democratic choice.
Well,
But what I
Samantha,
want to
top-down manipulative politics may get you through to keep you in power, but it just intensifies that disengagement and distrust. That's
yeah. What I want to
Can I
ask
say
Paul is, can you tell
also-
us why are all of these, in inverted commas, powerful people interested in keeping control of the Labour Party Irish Society?
I think it's to do with trigger ballots, if I'm honest.
Because they're a socialist society, aren't they?
Yeah,
So
I
they
think-
get a bit
Yeah.
more. We're talking about a group of people that is smaller than most constituencies. They've got less members than my constituency, and they've got a different type of power based on the fact they're a socialist society, don't they?
Yeah, I think I think it's to do with trigger ballots. I really do. I think people are interested in retaining their position. I think people got very scared when the Labour Party changed the rules slightly and said that trigger ballots would be easier to happen. And for those who don't understand, a trigger ballot is so, for example, John's a county councillor and he had to re-stand for his county council seat, and that's a standard thing throughout every position in the Labour Party, apart from MP. I'm not sure if there are any others, but there's certainly MPs are one of the only sets of people who the membership have to decide whether or not to have an open selection on that position. So when every time the general election comes up, the Labour Party members get an opportunity to decide whether they want to vote on who their prospective parliamentary candidate who might be going for MP will be, or whether they just retain their position. And you need at least a third of either socialist societies or members or branches or unions. And I think the idea of keeping a socialist society vote in there is very attractive to certain people. If I think the important thing about something like the Labour Party Irish Society is no one's talking about anything to do. Like, we've just had this huge Brexit debate and no one's talked about Ireland, which is the huge issue of Brexit for me, always was. And people don't understand it. People don't, like, you had Dominic Raab saying, oh, well, I didn't read the Good Friday Agreement, like, and he was pretending he thought it was this massive document. Well, maybe he did, but it's 35 pages long. It isn't a particularly, if that's your job, read it. And there've been a succession of people who've been caught out for that from the Tory party who haven't read the Good Friday Agreement and yet are saying this won't affect the Good Friday Agreement. How do you know? You know, so Irish issues aren't being spoken about at all in British media. So I just think it's a really important thing that we hear more Irish voices on that particular issue, especially going forward now that we've left the EU and the issue of reunification is really quite, you know, it's going to be a big political issue, I think.
I've just got to do this. Richie, we discussed this on the show tonight, and I'm just going to put the question to you that was put to the panel. What are the implications of the Brexit deal for the Good Friday Agreement? And is the deal approved by Parliament good or bad for the future of the two parts of Ireland? What's your view on that question?
Well, Brexit in itself is bad for Ireland, but in some ways, Northern Ireland are getting like the best of both deals, aren't they? They, you know, the part of the UK, but they're still, to all intents and purposes, still in the single market, even though they try not to say they're not. But they're covered by the same rules, but they don't have any say in it. Now, the majority of people in Northern Ireland will be in favour of that because it means there isn't a physical border and all the manifestations that would have. But the problems with the paperwork and stuff like that's going to cause them problems. But it might encourage more trade between Northern Ireland with Europe and Northern Ireland with the Republic of Ireland. It's too early to say till you actually see it all in practice, really, more than anything else.
But very interesting, I think.
Yeah, but and really, I don't think, like, people are on about setting up a rejoin groups and all this. I think it's too early to be doing anything like that. Like, I voted to stay in, but you can't start a fight against something at the moment till you see how it pans out. Get all the evidence and then use it. Now, the people up the north or wherever who voted to stay in, they had their reasons. But most people, I know loads of Irish people here in London, workers who voted for Brexit. And they voted for Brexit on racism. That was it, pure and utter racism. Any Irish person I know who voted for Brexit voted for racism. And that was it. Which shames me as an Irishman to think that I know these people who I've known for 15, 20, 30 years while I've lived in London through being involved in football club, my local pub or whatever like that, and to know that that's how they are. But then again, I could bring you to a working class area in Dublin and racism will be a big thing, even though there is no problem. there isn't a racism problem per se.
I mean, Paul thinks that what you're going to see is, and you hinted at it, what you're going to see is a gradual realignment of the North from the UK to the island of Ireland, to a united Ireland. I mean, do you see in the current agreement, the current Brexit agreement, the seeds of that eventually working and growing and happening?
Well, when you see more and more the Republic of Ireland government offering more and more to the Northern Irish people, like they've offered them Erasmus to the students of Northern Ireland, things like that. But there's a huge thing that the Irish Republic of Ireland doesn't have a national health service to what you call over here. How the Republic of Ireland would take that on in Northern Ireland, that's going to be a major backdrop. I know people who from here have moved back to Ireland, but they've lived over here most of their life, but they've gone to live in Fermanagh and Tyrone and and Derry. So they're near the Republic of Ireland, near their families, but they still have the benefit of the National Health Service to retire.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely valid points. Thank you for coming on, Richie. That's absolutely smashing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No, anytime. Please come on.
Yeah. I'll carry on and watch though.
God bless. Thank you.
Cheers.
Take it easy. See you later.
Samantha, have we had any other comments that we
I will say, Lilith said her daughter got paid more per hour working for the RSPCA than she did working in a care home. And I think that really sort of spells out the situation. I just think it's disgusting that if you you probably can't walk into a job center right now, but if you went on the job center website right now and searched for local minimum wage jobs, you'd get page after page of care work jobs. And you and I and everybody who's ever had and anybody who's ever loved anyone knows you don't want somebody working on minimum wage with no experience caring for your loved ones. It's just absolutely it's just
I mean,
crazy.
sort of, I get messages from someone who actually runs a care home, and sort of that they get very distressed because we just do not pay enough
Mhm.
to the care homes to provide that level of care. And sort of it goes back to what you were saying. I think it was you that said it earlier about the fact that um, we have this kind of really patchwork of sometimes quite small private providers, and sort of they're trapped in the middle between a system which doesn't give them enough money per person, and yet sort of gets angry with them then when they sort of provide the service which goes with that level of payment.
And of
So
course, we saw that at the beginning of the COVID crisis, where the only care homes that could get hold of PPE were the big ones because they were in a market system. So anybody who had big purchasing power could get lots of PPE, but people who didn't have as much purchasing power couldn't acquire it quick enough.
I mean, I'm just concerned that we mustn't come across as being negative about care workers, because some of the stories which came out as well were
Oh,
of
yeah.
care workers just being phenomenal. I mean, there's one where they just moved into the care home and they haven't seen their family for months because they wanted to shield these people they moved in with I mean, these people are just phenomenal sometimes. And we're talking about the level of support from government, which is
Yeah,
immeasurable.
absolutely. We all actually care for our carers, rather than just talking about it.
Yeah, we need to.
I'll just bring in a couple of points and then it'll be time for us to wind up. Simon, who came in and engaged with us. Hi, Simon. I know Simon. That's nice. He was saying, he just really wishes that they hadn't opened schools for that one day, because now he's on edge with his kids, thinking any cough or sniffle, could be it. And a lot of parents will be feeling that. Thankfully, we had a teacher training day yesterday, so we didn't get caught up in it. But my heart goes out to everybody. My heart goes out to my school. Timothy Ackwood School in Shildon is a fantastic school. They put out a statement through their Facebook page at 11 o'clock at night last night, and it was just obviously the head, and maybe she must have got it signed off by the chair of governors, put together this brief statement, and you could read the pain in it, because it said, we are really sorry, we can't open school for vulnerable children tomorrow because we've got to set up the processes to make that happen safely. And we have no time. It's now 11 o'clock at night and this is going to happen at 7:30 tomorrow. I just think it was absolutely the school leaders and the teachers who have been all through this pandemic, they've put in so much, and to just dump it on them from all day yesterday saying schools were going to go back, and then at 8 o'clock at night, when all of the admin staff have gone home and the school is locked, to say, oh, actually, schools are going to close immediately. It's just like they're not on the same planet as us.
The other thing
Did
that
you
made
hear
me
that the
go,
DFE released information saying that when they went home on the day that Boris Johnson made the announcement, they had been told that exams will still be on, and the government, sorry, the schools will still remain open. And the first the DFE heard of it, apparently, was when Boris Johnson made the announcement, which imagine being told that at work, no, business as usual, and then coming in the next day to an entirely different world that you've just seen announced. There seems to have been no plan to this.
Just incompetence of the greatest order and appalling management. The thing that infuriated me was the way that they passed the book to the schools and said, well, of course, it's down to, we want the schools to remain open, but it's down to the schools to make the decision, the judgment, whether it's safe for the children to return. Have you ever heard anything as evil as that? Just sort of saying it'll be the school's fault if your child dies. Because we're saying the principal of schools should be open, but head teachers have the final say as to whether it's safe to open their schools. And I just thought, you swine. I mean, that's not government. That's just manipulation and electioneering. How evil you are, sort of disgraceful. Sorry, I'm getting carried away.
And also, the council got a bit of heat on that as well, didn't they? People thought that the council statement wasn't strong enough in support of closing schools. But Paul made a good point in Facebook land somewhere that the council can't actually close our schools. Is it right if you're an academy, the council can't close?
We have no power over academies whatsoever. But the other thing is that we can only advise schools because the government was right in as much as that is the decision of the head teacher and the governors to close the schools. We can't make those schools close.
Yeah.
And sort of, I mean, we can sort of. So it was down, and then the next day they stepped up and did it anyway. They closed schools. The government did have that power after all. Just lies and yes, yeah, absolutely right. And of course, that, Samantha, is the answer to your question of how is it that people still are furious with this government? The answer is because it's always just somebody else to blame, and sort of these people want the government, they want a Tory government, they don't like Labour, and so any answer is good enough for them. And of course, the government serves up all kinds of people for them to blame. These dreadful, troublesome left-wing unions that evilly believe that sort of teachers ought to have a safe place to work like every other worker in the country. How evil of them, and sort of and so we'll blame the county council. They were decisive enough, or they were too decisive, because when we said earlier that we thought we were going to delay the opening of schools, and we were going to advise schools to delay their opening, we were in the wrong then. The county council was doing all that was evil then. Now it is. Next.
And another thing people need to factor in is that was it Cumbria County Council that said they were going to ask schools to stay closed, and the response of the government was, well, we'll sue you then. And do people really want their council tax to be spent fighting a legal battle with the government over something the government should be doing anyway? But yeah, last comment to Jake Ratcliffe, who made a really good point that I think swung public opinion quite a lot prior to the union action, which obviously came on the back of teachers feeling very passionately that they were not safe, was the whole thing about the fact that London being a tier 4 area, their primary schools were going to be closed, but ours weren't. And we are feeling this, and hope, I don't want people to feel angry, but I do want people to see what is going on around them. And I do hope people keep clocking on to this, the fact that people in London do seem to have a more valuable life than people in the northeast, and why is that? And we can't let them get away with it anymore. I think that's one thing that really did swing public opinion about it.
Right, thank you, Sam. That was brilliant. But if I've talked too much, before we go, let's just take comments from Stuart. Any final comments, Stuart, before we say goodbye?
You like the Irish accent too much?
I know, right? Oh my God, don't do that.
I think do you not think the Irish accent is beautiful?
You're allowed to like people's accent, but when you are talking to them about that instead of what they're actually talking about, it's not very polite, John. Don't do
It was good.
it.
Nonsense. Paul, before we go, have you got anything else to say?
Not really. No, I think it's been a good show. I've enjoyed it, and it was nice to hear something a little bit different tonight. I'm not just talking about accents, but yeah. Thanks to everyone. It's always good, and it's nice to be back. And I will make sure that I am not in an AGM next time, so the technical aspects will be back up to top notch again next week.
I think people enjoy the way it is, and that they're all desperate for me to start singing again. So, and Laura, last comment to close the show.
It's really lovely to be back, and happy Halloween and Christmas and New Year and anything else I missed while I was away. And I just hope I don't get poorly again so I can stay.
It's great to see you, absolutely. And to you listeners, goodbye. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. If you are still with us, of course, this is available on YouTube. It's available on Facebook. And see you next week. Bye and thank you.
Oh, and don't forget to check out our 12 Days of Solidarity, which are really, really good. That we did over the 12 days of Christmas. We did 12 Days of Solidarity. So yeah, check those out as well.
Socialist think tank is becoming a real kind of core, and the work that goes into it, Paul, is just absolutely spectacular. Thank you.
Laura's doing a lot of the driving force behind that. So
yeah. Okay.
All right.
God bless you. Bye, listeners. Thank you.
We'll keep the red flag flying here.